school counselor here at Dianza Magnet School and Desert Garden Elementary School, and I'm joined here today by...
Hi, I'm Lillian Vera. I am the counselor for Wilson Junior High.
And today we're going to talk about something that's really important for everyone to understand, is supporting mental health while doing distance learning at home. So here we go. So the importance of recognizing mental health during COVID-19. This is something unprecedented. We have not seen anything like this, I believe, in our lifetime, and probably in several lifetimes where we've had to shut down school and go to distance learning for such a long period of time. So this pandemic has stretched our coping skills to their limit. Now, that doesn't mean that we cannot go forward with this limitation, because this limitation, all it's doing is creating more opportunity for us to be better human beings. Everyone has entered a phase of grieving, and my colleague will go into the phase of grieving shortly. It has challenged our thoughts and our sense of safety and security. In other words, what we took for granted before, when we went to the store or when we went to school, we now have to be more cautious. Not overly cautious, but just cautious enough to protect ourselves and protect those around us. And it has increased different coping mechanisms to manage our stress and isolation from the separation from those relationships close to us. By nature, we are social, I would say social animals, but we're not animals, social people, and we need that social, if there's a social need for us to interact. But with COVID-19, it has kind of limited the way we do things, but it doesn't mean that we still can't do social things in a safe manner. And with that being said, we're going to go on to our next slide.
So we wanted to take some time to discuss the stages of grief. And most of us, when we think of grief, we think of maybe losing a loved one and, going through some different emotions as a result of that loss. But the stages of grief can happen with just any situation that is maybe distressing, or a situation that's unpredictable, a situation that's kind of out of our control. So people usually go through different phases, not necessarily in this sequence, but we're going to go ahead and discuss these phases so that we understand maybe what we went through when we were forced to kind of leave our life as we knew it when this pandemic hit, and what our students and our children have been going through, going through the pandemic. So the first phase is denial. And I think to a certain extent, we all went through it when we left, our jobs or our schools very abruptly. We all were thinking we'll be back in a couple of weeks. It'll be nothing. It'll be over soon. Not truly grasping the severity of the situation. Maybe it could have been wishful thinking. It could have been that we were not allowing ourselves to think that, this was a serious situation. So many of us just took it very lightly, didn't think it was serious, and we thought, we're going to be back in no time. After that, some people experience anger. And that anger and frustration could be very well, how can I say, was experienced by a lot of our teachers and by a lot of our students. And, some of our teachers were frustrated about the distance learning environment, having to change their teaching methods to now a completely online method. Parents were frustrated about the situation of having children sit in a computer for long periods of time. Students were frustrated about the fact that now they're not socializing with friends. They're having to do this work online. They're having to learn a new way of doing things so late in the school year. So yes, we experienced frustration and anger about the situation we were dealing with. Bargaining is one of those phases where we tend to try to say that if the situation were different, we would do something else. For example, some people would say, well, once this is over, I swear I'm going to be thankful for everything that I have. I'm going to be thankful for my job. I'm going to be thankful for my coworkers. I'm going to be thankful for that vacation that I can take. I will never take things for granted. So that's what people go to. They try to bargain with themselves. Like, if the situation ends, this is what I'm going to do now differently. So you're kind of trying to, in a way, like praying or begging for this situation to be over. And in return, you're going to do things in a different way. Some people were hit with depression, and depression is pretty self-explanatory. People experience the sadness, they experience the low motivation, they experience the lack of connection with other people, the lack of desire to do things that maybe they once enjoyed before. So many of us went through that phase where we started feeling sad about the fact that we were at home, we were disconnected, that we couldn't see our coworkers anymore. Our students were not seeing their friends anymore. They were not connecting with their teachers. Some people did have losses and they had deaths in the family. So they experienced that sense of depression and loss. Finally, the last phase is acceptance. And with acceptance, people kind of recognize the new reality and they work with it and they try to cope with it, and many people that have reached that point of acceptance will say, it is what it is. I just have to work with it. It's going to be over one day. I'm just going to pull through. So those are the stages of grief. And we just wanted you to know what they were. And I'm sure many of you can relate to some of the phases that you went through when this pandemic hit. Now, be aware that some people go through all of them. Some people don't. Some people go from denial to depression. Some people just went from denial to maybe acceptance. It just happens in different ways. Some people get stuck in some of those spaces and it's hard for them to get out of them. So we need to recognize where we're at and where our children are at to see how we can help them.
So the next important place to be is schedule. How to schedule and provide structure at home. Now, some of you may have one student at home, maybe providing distance learning to them. You might have multiple students in different age groups. You might have a college student. You and your husband might, your spouse might be at home working together. So it's really important to provide the structure necessary for your household that'll work for everyone. Now, structure is very important in every environment, whether we're at school, whether we're at home, whether we're at work, and sometimes even whether we're outdoors. Now there's a lot of structure that goes along with being outdoors. There's new guidelines, safe guidelines to keep everybody not only safe, but also giving them a sense of security when they're out shopping or when they're out and about doing the things that we do on a day-to-day. Now, providing structure helps our mind to focus that everything is good and everything is secure. Providing that gives us some reassurance, allows us to reduce the spontaneity that we might think, like, what if something happens that I'm not, that is unpredictable. So being prepared and being structured is very important, especially during this time. For school, it's important to recognize how our brain works, to understand that even though we are in one environment, which is our home, we have two different things going on. In other words, we have our school time, which students are in Zoom classes, but then after Zoom, it's our home time. And even though we're in the one environment of home, we have to make sure that we understand that once school is done, now it's the after school things that we do, whether it's homework or Google Classroom assignments. But we have to make sure that we put some time in there for some family time, for some time for the student or for the child to also express themselves, whether they go outside and play with their pets or they play a video game or watch some TV. Okay, so that's important also to take care of yourself. The structuring the environment meets the needs of both the household and those manages our stress to a level where we can live with it. Okay, again, the biggest thing is when we provide a structure, we make sure that we eliminate things like, let me give you a case in point. If you are on Zoom, like right now, if I'm on Zoom doing a webinar or something, I definitely don't want none of my dogs to come up and jump on my lap. So what I do is I provide structure. I keep my dogs outside until I'm done with my workday, then I can bring them inside and we can spend some time together. So with that being said, we're going to go on to our next slide.
So the things that we're discussing right now is ways that you can support the mental health of your student at home. At this point, most of our students spend the majority of their day at home, and they are in a computer for maybe 4 hours out of their day, if not more, when they're doing assignments. And, so structure, like Mr. Olivas was saying, is one thing that we can do to kind of make the environment more predictable. And, when you provide more predictability, it increases a student's sense of security and safety. And like he said, minimizing those distractions, minimizing, that time interruptions, that decreases the stress level. Exercise is one of those other activities that can also help a child manage, their stress level during this pandemic. Exercise and activity level are very important. As many of you know, exercising does produce positive chemicals. It helps with processing of thinking. It helps with reducing toxins and negative chemicals that can saturate your system and then leads to heavy stress. It also helps with oxygen flow. What's happening now is that most of our students are in, Zoom the majority of their day. And then after Zoom, sometimes they go directly into video games. So they're not really having that physical activity that they used to have before when they were attending school regularly. School does provide a structure and it does embed physical activity during the day. And even walking from one class to the other when students are in middle school or when kids are in elementary school, when they have recess and they have lunch and then they have a PE class, that facilitates the physical activity and it also promotes the social interaction. In this case, we're having students that are very sedentary and they're just sitting in front of a computer for many hours during the day. So increasing that exercise and scheduling it and making it a point to have these students have some kind of physical activity, it's not only for their health, but it's also for their emotional well-being. Exercise and activity, physical activity does produce endorphins, it does produce chemicals, it does eliminate toxins that will help our students be able to manage their emotions more effectively and be able to focus more effectively also in classes.
Now, this is something that's used to be a problem before, and it looks like it might be a problem now. Our sleep. Sleep patterns are very important for the mind to get rest, for the body to get rest, for you to have sharp focus, great concentration. Not only is exercise very important, but also the time that we take to sleep. In other words, to completely rest our bodies, our minds, our eyes, and everything else so we can recharge for the next day. The brain needs an adequate time of sleep to rest and recharge. We can't go with 2 hours of sleep or 3 and 3 and 3 hours of sleep. We need to make sure that we get minimum 7 to 9 hours of direct sleep, deep sleep, so we can have a full functioning brain that is not only very sharp, but also has laser focus, great concentration, and the ability to produce not only a lot of thoughts, but a lot of ideas in rapid succession. Having distance learning makes it difficult sometimes for us to say, okay, I want to share some ideas or I want to express some ideas. But having great sleep will allow you to have that patience to say, you know what, I'm going to raise my hand, have the students say, I'm going to raise my hand and share my idea regarding this particular problem or this particular situation. Sleep studies have demonstrated that appropriate sleep time and patterns have tremendous effect on our day-to-day processes, and our energy levels are higher. Just like exercise is very important to keep the body adrenalized, focused, intact, concentrated, sleep is also a crucial part of that. We want to make sure that students have a bedtime routine, a ritual that they go forward with. In other words, at around 7:30, it's time to unwind. At around 8 o'clock, it's time to put all the electronics away. At 8:30, it's time to get into the sleepwear, brush the teeth, get ready for the next day of school, get all the materials prepared. And then by 9 o'clock, 9:30, depending on your household, sometimes 10, get some rest. Time to go to bed, turn off the lights, get ready for the next day. And once you wake up in the morning, you'll feel a lot more refreshed, especially if you don't have any interruptions. Electronics is a big thing. Moms and dads, if you can, do yourself a favor, do your student a favor, do your child a favor, and say, you know what, let's hold on to this until the weekend when we can give you a little bit more time so you can spend with your friends. At least at this point, 8 o'clock, 7:30, 8:30 is the cutoff time, so we can make sure that you get to bed and your mind is actually resting, pre-resting before getting to sleep. So with that being said, the next slide here.
And I think just to just add a little bit to that, Mr. Olivas, I do know that there's been sleep studies that show, like, and he mentioned briefly some of that, that people that go without sleep, there's been studies where they actually kept people without sleeping for many, many hours. And what they found is that their cognitive abilities decline, that they couldn't think straight. They might, some of them started having like delusional thinking and actually having like hallucinations because they didn't sleep, and their moods were really impacted. They were very irritable. They were not coping well with emotions. So sleep, I think out of this presentation, this is one of the ones that we really want to stress, because we do know that many of our students, they do go to sleep really late, and they do, engage in the video gaming, and or they have the electronics. And, if they have that available to them, that's gonna affect their sleep. But moving forward, social activity, as we talked about, social activity is very important. They used to have a lot of that when they were in school. They would see their classmates face to face. They had the ability to talk to their friends, in person. And, even with social media, they were still having that face-to-face contact with the students at school. But now, with the orders in place, social activity and social interaction has been really restricted. So we must find ways to have that outlet for our students, a way for them to interact with kids their age in a meaningful and satisfying way. It could be a Zoom. I know it's online, but at least that will enable the social activity, not necessarily related to school, but just a time for them to connect about other things happening in their lives. It can also be when if you have families, and you're able to gather with them, in a safe way, just to have that connection even with other family members. School does provide a lot of abilities for children. They kind of start learning how to engage with each other, how to recognize others' perspectives. They learn from others' mistakes. They learn from others' achievements. They do do a lot of mirroring in what they learn from others. And right now they're not having that ability as much because they're isolated. So we have to be able to provide those outlets as much as we can, either through social media, either through Zoom, or even in gatherings in a safe manner. Also, social activity allows for students to be resilient. That means to be emotionally strong and to improve their social skills and communication. We've saw a couple of years ago, even before the pandemic, that many students, their mode of interaction outside of school was basically texting. And they even have their own way of writing words, and sometimes that would translate into the classroom where they were writing the same little shortcuts, in their assignments. But, the way they were communicating was different, maybe not what we would prefer when it comes to social interaction. We really see a value in the face-to-face or person-to-person interaction instead of just writing and texting, or posting on Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, whatever they're using. So if we can enable, those social interactions in a safe manner, we really should strive to schedule that into their week.
Now, you might be wondering, so what if we do all this and there's still some situations that might need either a school counselor or another mental health professional to kind of go in there and help you with this kind of situation? Number one, contacting your child's school. If you have access to the teacher, please do so. I know there are a lot of platforms now where schools are using Facebook, they're using Class Dojo, email, telephone. If I always say, if all else fails, you can get on there, the directory, and if you call the lines at the school during the school hours, someone will answer, and you will get a response from whoever the person that is that you may need at that point. You could always contact, not only the Facebook pages, but also contacting your school counselor directly. Most school counselors have made themselves available through Class Dojo. They also have their own Google Classrooms that you may respond to. I know there's a lot of invitations within the Google Classroom for parents to also engage. We also have the district website to reach the school counselors. It's called the Counselor's Corner. So if you go to the El Centro Elementary School District webpage, you'll see on there that says Counselor Corner. You click on that, you look for the school and you look for the counselor, and they'll get an immediate response from an email saying that you are, you're this parent and you want some further resources, or you just want to talk about a certain situation, and maybe the school counselor like myself or Ms. Vera can point you in the right direction as to meeting the needs of that circumstance. Also, we can contact our friends over at Imperial County Behavioral Health. I know their number is 1-800 number that Ms. Vera can supply for us at this time. Do you happen to know it off the top of your head, Ms. Vera?
The main number to the children's department is 442-265-1670.
Yes, it is. I do remember that one. So that's for Imperial County Behavioral Health, and that's the children's department that's, that engages students of every age. And if for some reason your student just happens to meet a certain cutoff, they can also direct you to the right department there. Also, connecting with your own counseling services provided by your own employer. A lot of employers do have counseling services available. They're called the Employee Assistance Program, or they're called different kinds of programs. But I know, especially right now during COVID-19, there are a lot of counseling opportunities out there, not only through our school and our school district and our community, but also through your own employer, if you're able to access that way, and if you would rather do something more privately as well. So with that being said, did I miss anything on the counseling services, Ms. Vera?
No, just basically, if you see anything that you're concerned about, just don't wait, just reach out. And, it might be that it's not something that requires maybe a referral, but if it does, we're there to provide that linkage service. So don't wait until maybe things get worse. There's prevention services out there that can always be accessed just to prevent things from getting worse.
Yes, and we're like Ms. Vera said, we're always available. We're more than happy to help, and we always want what's best, not only for your student, but also for your family.
Mm-hmm. So just before we end, we just wanted to share some tips that might be helpful. One thing is we do want to discuss with our students the ways to remain safe. Again, when we talk about fostering a sense of safety and security, we want to give them the tools and give them the education as to how they can keep themselves safe, and and how they can help their family members stay safe. We also want to limit the exposure to constant news coverage. Any news outlet that you go to, right now the election is like the big news, but before that it was COVID-19. Every news station you would tune to, you would hear something about COVID-19. You would hear about numbers, you would hear about the devastation. And it's, as adults, maybe we're able to handle that kind of information more effectively, but certainly children and adolescents are not cognitively at that age or emotionally where they can handle all the information that's being thrown their way. So if we can just limit the news coverage so they're not constantly hearing about all the negative things that are happening, that is very helpful. Also, if you can provide factual information about the health of sick relatives or friends, if somebody is sick, which might happen, this is a very real situation that might occur to any of us, we want to provide the facts, but we don't want to provide information that's going to increase the stress level of our student. Talking about, we have a counselor friend that talks about the attack of the what ifs. If we keep talking about the what ifs, that this is what can potentially happen, this is how bad the situation can be, and we start predicting all the possible negative things that can happen, it only increases the stress level of our students. So we must be really mindful about what we present and how we talk to our students about the facts. There's nothing better than a reassuring talk about the reality of what's happening. Yes, somebody's sick, they're getting the help that they need, they're seeing doctors, they're in the best place that they can be, and we hope that things are going to be better.
And we want you to remember that this country is getting better at understanding, COVID-19. And we should start talking to our kids like, we do have a great preparation. We do have a vaccine on the way. We do have medical professionals who are understanding it to a level that they didn't understand it when it first started. There are people getting well. There are people getting treatment at the highest level, even down here in Imperial County. The other thing I want to let you guys know, and we want to let you know, is that more importantly than something like COVID-19 being infectious, your own way of reacting is also infectious. So if you're calm, if you're understanding, if you listen to your child and let them tell you what they might be concerned about, it allows for them to not only express themselves, get their concerns out, but it also allows for you to be that calming person, that lighthouse in the storm, to help them relax and help them understand that this is also something that we're going through, but we will be coming out of fairly soon.
Mhm. So yes, the reactions that we have to events can potentially traumatize our children. So like Mr. Oliva said, there's nothing better than a soothing, calming way of reacting, even though, things might be stressful to us. If we react in a way that's very distressing or catastrophic, that could potentially lead to trauma in our kids. With that being said, that concludes our presentation. Mr. Olivas, I know we have a couple of minutes left. Are you able to see any questions in the chat? I think there was a question about the Spanish presentation, if I'm not mistaken, and we will be having the Spanish presentation at 6 today. Just, in case some of you want to listen to the presentation in Spanish. Is there anything else, Mr. Olivas or Mr. Romayor, that you can see on the screen?
No, we don't have. Are you talking about chatting on YouTube,
Yes.
Ms. Vera?
I just got a message saying that there was a question about the Spanish presentation. I don't know in what
Okay.
means we got that question.
No, just because we didn't have any chat functions on. That's why I was asking. No, I don't see any questions on any of our digital systems. No.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Olivas and Ms. Vera, thank you very much for being here and for this presentation on behalf of everybody. And thank you for those that attended, that are subscribing to our channel. We're going to be here every evening from 5 to 7, every 30 minutes, 5 o'clock in English, 6 o'clock in English, and then 5:30 and 6:30 in Spanish. I think I did that right. And we just want to share with everyone a good reminder is that our Parent and Community Engagement Center is here to, hold on a second, make sure I'm sharing the right thing here. There we go. Our Parent and Community Engagement Center is here to assist you in anything you may need. There's our phone number for the department. That's 760-335-5105. Miss Esther Green is there and her folks who provide different services, obviously virtually right now, the way we are. And there's a dedicated website for the department. And that's ecsd.org/PACE. So please visit there. We're adding more resources. Miss Green's department is, and they're always available to help out. Once again, thank you, Mr. Olivas. Thank you, Ms. Vera, for being here this evening. And thank you for everyone who connected with us.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.